The maintenance log showed 17 work orders for room 314 in the 3 weeks before Hannah Vargas died there. The building had 240 rooms. No other unit had more than 3 requests that semester. So why did one 19-year-old sophomore need the air vent checked 5 times, the window lock inspected twice, and the overhead light fixture examined on 4 separate occasions? And why did every single request form have her signature, but none of them match her actual handwriting? I am looking at these forms right now. They are spread across my desk in the order they were filed. August 23rd through September 15th. The paper stock is correct. The form numbers sequential. The carbon copies present. Everything about them is procedurally perfect, except for one detail that makes my hands shake when I hold them up to the light. The signatures were traced. Not forged in the traditional sense, but physically traced from a source document using pressure transfer. You can see the hesitation marks where the pen paused. You can see where the stroke weight changes as someone followed a template underneath. Hannah Vargas moved into Whitmore Hall on August 20th. She attended freshman orientation events, joined the environmental club, bought textbooks. Her roommate described her as quiet, organized, maybe a little homesick. She video called her parents in Albuquerque every Sunday evening. She was studying biology with plans for veterinary school. On September 16th, campus security found her unresponsive in room 314 at 6:47 in the morning. The door was locked from the inside. The window was closed and latched. The official report called it a tragic accident, possibly related to an undiagnosed medical condition. That would have been the end of it except for one problem. I was hired by her parents to review the case 6 months later, not because they doubted the medical examiner, but because they could not understand why their daughter had filed so many maintenance complaints. Hannah was not a complainer. She had lived in the same bedroom at home for 18 years and never once asked her father to fix anything. She did not like drawing attention to herself. She certainly would not have called facilities management 17 times in 3 weeks. So I started with the maintenance department. Whitmore Hall is managed by a private contractor, Stellar Campus Services, which handles work orders for 11 buildings across the university. I submitted a Freedom of Information request for all maintenance records related to Whitmore Hall for the fall semester. It took 4 weeks and 2 follow-up calls to receive a password-protected PDF with 392 pages. Room 314 appears 68 times in that document. But here is what the records do not show. They do not show who specifically completed each work order. The technician field is blank on 14 of the 17 forms related to room 314. The 3 that do have names attached belong to workers who no longer work for Stellar Campus Services. 1 quit the week after Hannah died. 1 transferred to a different campus. 1 moved out of state. I have tried to contact all 3. None of them have returned my calls. The work orders themselves describe routine issues. Air vent making noise. Window lock stiff. Light fixture flickering. Thermostat unresponsive. But when I spoke to Hannah's roommate, Carrie Mitchell, she told me she never noticed any of these problems. The air vent was silent. The window opened and closed normally. The lights worked fine. Carrie lived in that room too. She would have noticed if the air conditioning was malfunctioning in September heat. I asked Carrie if she remembered maintenance workers coming to the room. She said yes, but only twice that she personally witnessed. Both times the worker spent less than 5 minutes inside, checked the air vent, said everything looked fine, and left. She remembered thinking it was strange that they kept coming back for the same issue, but she was busy with classes and did not think much of it at the time. Hannah never mentioned being bothered by maintenance visits. In fact, Carrie said Hannah seemed increasingly anxious as September progressed, but she attributed it to academic pressure. The university gave me access to the room, which has been vacant since Hannah's death. Students requested transfers after what happened. The room is unchanged except for the absence of personal belongings. I spent 3 hours in there with a flashlight and a camera, examining every surface. The air vent grate has fresh scratches around the screw heads. Someone removed it recently, or repeatedly. The window lock mechanism shows wear patterns consistent with frequent testing. The overhead light fixture has finger smudges on the glass cover that do not match the cleaning schedule. But the detail that changed everything was inside the closet. There is a small access panel in the ceiling, the kind that leads to utility space between floors. It is painted over and was clearly not meant to be opened by residents. When I pushed on it, it moved. The paint seal was broken. I got a chair, pushed the panel aside, and looked into the crawl space with my phone light. The dust pattern up there told a story. There were clear disturbance marks, drag lines through settled dust, and most importantly, there were knee prints. Someone had been up there, crawling through that space, and based on the dust distribution, they had done it more than once. The access panel in room 314 is directly above the closet. The access panel in room 3116, 2 doors down, would be in the same location. I checked the maintenance records for room 3116. 0 work orders all semester. I need to be very clear about what I am suggesting here. Someone used maintenance access to enter the crawl space above room 314 multiple times in the weeks before Hannah died. The work orders were falsified to create a paper trail that would explain technician presence in the building and on that floor. Hannah's signature was traced to make the requests appear legitimate. Whoever did this had access to maintenance credentials, blank work order forms, and a sample of Hannah's signature. The question becomes, why? Why would someone need repeated access to the space above Hannah's room? Why would they risk creating a false documentation trail? Why target her specifically? I obtained Hannah's complete campus record through her parents' authorization. Her student ID card access log shows she entered Whitmore Hall on September 15th at 11:53 p.m., returning from the library. She scanned into the building lobby, took the elevator to the 3rd floor, and her card was not used again. Carrie Mitchell was at her boyfriend's apartment that night and did not return until morning. Hannah was alone in room 314. Campus security found her at 6:47 a.m. after Carrie called them. She was unresponsive on her bed, fully clothed. The medical examiner noted no signs of trauma, no evidence of struggle. Toxicology came back clean except for normal levels of her prescribed allergy medication. Cause of death was listed as sudden cardiac arrhythmia, possibly related to an undiagnosed congenital heart defect. Her parents confirmed no family history of heart problems, but the examiner said these conditions can appear without warning. But here is what does not fit. Hannah's phone was found on her desk, not on her bed or nightstand where someone sleeping would keep it. Her laptop was open to a document she had been working on, last saved at 11:37 p.m., 16 minutes before she entered the building. That means she came back to the room and did not touch her computer again. Her shoes were by the door, not under the bed where she usually kept them according to Kerry. Her desk lamp was on, but her bedside lamp was off. These are small details, but they suggest Hannah came into the room, took off her shoes, and either sat on her bed or lay down without preparing for sleep. The autopsy report included one detail that has stayed with me. Hannah had a small bruise on her right shoulder, approximately 2 inches in diameter, consistent with impact from a blunt object. The examiner noted it but determined it was unrelated to cause of death, likely sustained days earlier from normal activity. But when I showed the autopsy photo to her parents, they said Hannah bruised easily, and that mark looked fresh, not several days old. I went back to Stella Campus Services with specific questions. I wanted to know who had access to blank work order forms. I wanted copies of the employee schedule for September. I wanted the name of every technician assigned to Whitmore Hall during that period. The operations manager, a man named Derek Strauss, told me that information was proprietary and I would need a subpoena. I do not have subpoena power. I am a private investigator working for a family who wants answers. But Derek Strauss's refusal told me something important. He was protecting someone, or protecting the company from liability. I started asking around campus, talking to students who lived in Whitmore Hall that semester. Most of them barely remembered Hannah, but a few remembered seeing maintenance workers in the building frequently that September, more often than usual. One student, a junior named Marcus Webb who lived on the 4th floor, told me he saw the same maintenance van in the parking lot almost every afternoon for about 2 weeks. He noticed because the worker would park in a visitor spot instead of the service area. Marcus did not remember what the worker looked like. He never paid that much attention. But he remembered the van was always there between 2 and 4 p.m., which struck him as odd because most maintenance happened in the morning before students were awake, or in the evening after dinner. The middle of the afternoon seemed like an inconvenient time to do loud work in a dormitory. I checked the work orders again. The timestamp field shows when each request was filed and when it was marked complete. The room 314 requests were all filed between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m., completed between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. Same window Marcus Webb remembered seeing the van. That is not proof of anything, but it is a pattern. Then I found something in the campus newspaper archive that changed my understanding completely. 3 years before Hannah died, another student in Whitmore Hall reported a maintenance worker entering her room without permission. She filed a complaint with campus security, claiming she woke up at 3 a.m. and found someone in her room, claiming to check the air vent. The worker left when she screamed. Campus security investigated but could not verify the claim because facilities management had no record of a work order for that room at that time. The student was advised to keep her door locked, and the incident was classified as unsubstantiated. That student's name was Emily Sanderson. She lived in room 412. She graduated 2 years ago and moved to Portland. I found her on social media and sent a careful message explaining who I was and why I was asking. She called me within an hour. She said she had been waiting for someone to take her seriously. Emily told me the maintenance worker was in her room for less than a minute. He was wearing the standard uniform, had a tool belt, and claimed he was checking for a reported air quality issue. But Emily had not filed any complaint. She had been asleep. The door was locked, but he had used a key. When she confronted him, he apologized and said he must have had the wrong room number. He left quickly. Emily reported it immediately, but campus security said there was no record of any maintenance call that night, and no way to determine which worker it might have been without more identifying information. Emily could only say he was average height, white, maybe 30 to 40 years old. The investigation went nowhere. But Emily said something else that made my blood go cold. 2 days after the incident, she found a maintenance request form slipped under her door. It was already filled out, requesting an air vent inspection for her room, dated the day before the incident. The signature on the form was not hers, but it was close enough to pass a casual inspection. She took it to campus security, but they said it proved the worker had legitimate reason to be there. Emily insisted she had not filed the request. They said maybe she forgot, or maybe her roommate did it. Her roommate confirmed she had not. The case was closed. Emily transferred out of Whitmore Hall the next semester. She said she never felt safe there again. She said she would wake up at night convinced someone was in the crawl space above her room. She could hear sounds, small movements. But when she reported it, facilities management said old buildings make noise, and she was probably hearing the HVAC system. She said the sounds stopped after she moved out, or maybe she just stopped being afraid enough to notice them. I asked Emily if she ever saw the worker again. She said yes, once. About a month after the incident, she was walking across campus and saw him getting into a Stellar Campus Services van. She was certain it was him. Same build, same face. She froze, and he looked directly at her. She said he smiled. Not a friendly smile. A smile that said he remembered her. She went straight to campus security and asked them to pull his employment records. They said they would look into it. She never heard back. That was 3 years ago. Hannah Vargas died 2 years later in the same building, after 17 falsified maintenance requests created a documented pattern of a worker needing access to her floor, her hallway, her room. Emily's case and Hannah's case have never been officially connected. As far as the university is concerned, Emily's incident was an unsubstantiated complaint, and Hannah's death was a medical tragedy. But I do not believe in coincidences this specific. Same building, same falsified work orders, same predatory access pattern. The only difference is Emily woke up, and Hannah did not. I need to know who was working for Stellar Campus Services in September 3 years ago, and September when Hannah died. I need to know who had access to blank work order forms and master keys. I need to know if the same person was employed during both time periods. Derek Strauss will not give me that information, but there are other ways to get it. I filed requests with the university for all campus security incident reports related to Whitmore Hall for the past 5 years. I am looking for patterns, other complaints, other students who reported feeling unsafe or noticed maintenance workers behaving strangely. I am looking for anyone else who might have been targeted but dismissed. And I started making calls to former Stellar Campus Services employees. I found a worker named Brian Cutler who quit last year after 9 years with the company. He agreed to meet me at a coffee shop off campus. He would not let me record the conversation, but he was willing to talk. Brian said there was always something wrong with the way Stella managed Whitmore Hall. Work orders would appear in the system that nobody remembered taking. Rooms would be marked as serviced when no one had been there. He said there was one guy, a senior technician, who always volunteered for Whitmore Hall jobs even though most workers hated that building because the elevators were slow and the hallways smelled like mildew. This guy would take any Whitmore call, any time, even if it meant staying late or coming in early. Brian said the guy's name was Aaron Trent. He had been with Stella for over a decade. He knew the building inside and out. He had access to every utility space, every crawl area, every locked room. He was good at his job, never had complaints, always professional. But Brian said there was something off about him. The way he talked about the students, the way he would mention specific rooms or specific residents without being asked. Brian said it felt like Aaron was keeping track of people. I asked Brian if Aaron Trent still worked for Stella. He said no. Aaron quit about a month after Hannah Vargas died. No notice, just turned in his keys and left. Brian heard through the break room that Aaron said he was moving to take care of a sick relative in another state, but Brian did not believe it. Aaron had never mentioned family before, and the timing was too convenient. I asked Brian if he knew where Aaron went. He did not, but he said Aaron used to talk about hiking in the mountains outside the city, some trail system near a reservoir. Brian thought Aaron might have mentioned living in that area, but he was not certain. I am trying to locate Aaron Trent now. His last known address, according to public records, is an apartment complex 12 miles from campus. I drove there. The manager said Aaron moved out 14 months ago, right around the time he quit Stella. She said he paid his lease termination fee in cash and left no forwarding address. She described him as quiet, paid rent on time, kept to himself. She said she only saw him coming and going, usually in his work uniform. She never heard noise from his unit, never had complaints. He was an ideal tenant, except for the fact that he left without warning. The apartment was cleaned thoroughly before the next tenant moved in, but the manager let me look at photos from the move-out inspection. Standard furnished apartment. No personal items left behind. No damage. Nothing remarkable except for one detail in the bedroom photo. There were nail holes in the wall above the desk, 4 of them in a rectangular pattern, like something had been mounted there. The manager said she assumed it was a bulletin board, or a mirror. I asked if she remembered what it was. She did not. I am working on a theory now, and it is not one I want to be right about. Aaron Trent had access to Whitmore Hall for over a decade. He had master keys. He knew the building layout. He knew where the crawl spaces were and how to move through them. He could create work orders in the system to justify his presence. He could trace student signatures from university records to make the requests look legitimate. He had opportunity, means, and a documented pattern of targeting students in that building. But what I do not have yet is proof that he did anything to Hannah Vargas. The medical examiner ruled her death natural causes. There is no evidence of poisoning, suffocation, or physical harm beyond that single bruise. If Aaron was in her room that night, if he accessed it through the crawl space the way I believe he did, what did he do that caused her heart to stop without leaving a trace? I have been researching methods. There are ways to induce cardiac arrest that are difficult to detect in autopsy. Certain drugs metabolize quickly. Certain pressure points on the body can disrupt heart rhythm if you know where to apply force. But all of these would require physical contact, and Hannah's body showed no signs of restraint, no defensive wounds, no indication she fought back. Unless she did not know she was in danger. Unless she was asleep when it happened. Unless someone she had seen multiple times over the past 3 weeks, someone in a maintenance uniform doing routine work, entered her room one final time while she was unconscious or sedated. The allergy medication in her system was at normal levels. But what if it was not just allergy medication? What if someone had access to her pill bottle and replaced a few tablets with something that looked identical, but caused sedation? Hannah took her medication every night, according to her parents. If someone substituted pills, she would have ingested them without knowing. That level of planning requires premeditation. It requires access to her personal space multiple times, to learn her routine, identify her medication, and execute a substitution. It requires knowledge of pharmacology and timing. It requires someone who was patient enough to build trust, or at least familiarity, over weeks. The 17 maintenance requests served 2 purposes. They created a legitimate reason for Aaron Trent to be in and around room 341. And they gave him access to study Hannah's habits, her schedule, her belongings. Each visit was reconnaissance. By the time he came back on the night she died, he knew everything he needed to know. But I still cannot prove it. I have circumstantial evidence. I have a pattern. I have a suspect who disappeared right after her death. What I do not have is physical evidence connecting Aaron Trent to Hannah's room on September 15th. I do not have witnesses who saw him there. I do not have forensic proof. So I did something that might have been reckless. I went to the police. Not campus security, but the city homicide division. I asked to speak to someone about a potential wrongful death case. They assigned me a detective named Laura Voss. I gave her everything. The maintenance records, Emily Sanderson's incident report, The cruel space evidence. Aaron Trent's employment history and sudden disappearance. The timeline. Detective Voss listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked if I had any direct evidence that Aaron Trent was in Hannah's room on the night she died. I said no. She asked if I had proof that Hannah's medication was tampered with. I said no. She asked if the medical examiner had flagged anything suspicious in the autopsy. I said no. Then she said something that made me realize how difficult this was going to be. She said, even if I was right, even if Aaron Trent had entered Hannah's room that night, even if he had done something that caused her death, proving it beyond a reasonable doubt would require evidence we did not have and might never get. She said the original investigation was closed. The death was ruled natural causes. Reopening it would require new evidence, not just a theory. I asked her what would constitute new evidence. She said a confession, a witness. Physical proof linking Aaron Trent to the scene, something concrete. I asked if she could at least try to locate Aaron Trent for questioning. She said she would see what she could do, but she was not optimistic. People have a right to move and change jobs. Quitting after a workplace incident is not evidence of guilt. Without probable cause, she could not compel him to speak to police. I left that meeting feeling like I was hitting a wall I could not break through. I had connected the pieces. I understood what happened. But understanding and proving are different things. That is when I made a decision that I knew was dangerous but felt necessary. I decided to find Aaron Trent myself. If the police would not look for him, I would. I started with public records, vehicle registration, utility accounts, employment history, credit activity. All of it came up empty. Aaron Trent had effectively disappeared. No driver's license renewal, no tax filings at a new address, no social media presence, no digital footprint after he quit Stellar Campus Services. But people leave traces even when they try not to. I went back to the hiking area Brian Cutler had mentioned. There is a reservoir about 30 miles outside the city with trails that connect to national forest land. I spent 2 days driving Forest Service roads, checking trailheads, asking at ranger stations if anyone recognized Aaron's photo from his employee ID. Most people said no. But one ranger, an older man named Cliff, said the face looked familiar. He thought he had seen someone matching that description at a remote trailhead about 6 months ago. The person was loading camping gear into a truck. Cliff remembered because the truck was parked in a day-use area overnight, which was against regulations. He was going to issue a citation, but by the time he drove back with the paperwork, the truck was gone. I asked Cliff if he remembered what kind of truck. He said a dark blue or black pickup, older model, maybe late 90s. He did not get the license plate. I asked if he remembered anything else about the person. Cliff said the guy had been wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, kept his head down. But Cliff noticed his hands because he was tying down a tarp over the truck bed. He said the guy had a scar across his right palm, like an old injury. I looked at Aaron Trent's employment records again. In the notes section, there was a mention of a workplace injury from 8 years ago. He had cut his hand on sheet metal while installing ductwork. Required stitches. Returned to work after 2 weeks. That would have left a scar. I went back to that trailhead 3 times over the next week. I saw hikers, families, mountain bikers, no one matching Aaron's description. But on my 4th visit, I found something. There is an old service road that branches off from the main parking area. It is gated and marked for official vehicles only, but the gate was open, the chain cut. I walked up that road for about half a mile until I reached a clearing. In the clearing were the remains of a campsite, a fire ring, trash buried poorly under rocks, and tire tracks in the dirt that had not been washed away by rain because they were protected by tree cover. The tracks matched the tread pattern of a light truck. I took photos. I also found something else. A piece of paper wedged under a rock, partially burned but still readable. It was a receipt from a hardware store in a town 40 miles north, dated 2 months ago. I could not read the name on the receipt, but I could read the items purchased. Padlock. Chain. Tarp. Bleach. That was when I started to feel the fear I had been keeping at a distance. Because these are the purchases of someone who is hiding something. Someone who needs to secure a location, cover something, clean something. I took the receipt and left. The hardware store was in a small mountain town. I drove there and showed Aaron's photo to the clerk. She did not recognize him. But she checked the transaction records using the receipt number. The purchase was made with cash. No name attached. But the store has exterior security cameras. I asked if I could review the footage from that day. She said only law enforcement could access that. I called Detective Voss again. I told her what I found. She sighed. She said finding evidence that someone is camping illegally in the forest is not proof of homicide. I said it is proof that Aaron Trent is still in the area and actively avoiding detection. She said she would send a patrol to check the campsite, but she could not make it a priority. I did not wait for the patrol. I went back to the clearing the next day with a better camera and more time. I searched the area systematically. I found more buried trash. Energy bar wrappers. A water bottle. A torn piece of fabric that looked like it came from a tent. And I found something else about 50 yards into the woods. A trail that was not on any map. It led uphill, narrow and overgrown, barely visible. I followed it. The trail ended at a rock outcropping that overlooked a ravine, and at the base of that outcropping, hidden behind scrub brush, was a storage container. One of those portable metal sheds you can buy at home improvement stores. It was camouflaged with branches and dirt. I almost missed it. The shed was locked with the padlock from the hardware store receipt. I did not have bolt cutters. I did not have a warrant. I did not have permission to be there. But I also knew if I left and came back with police, whoever had placed this shed here might move it. I made a choice. I used a rock to break the lock. It took several tries. When the lock finally gave way, I opened the door. The smell hit me first. Chemical. Bleach and something else. Something organic and wrong. Inside the shed were storage bins. I opened the first one. Clothes. Women's clothing. Folded neatly. Different sizes, different styles, all clean. I opened the second bin. Personal items. A wallet. Student ID cards. Keys. Jewelry. Small things that would be easy to take and not immediately missed. I recognized one of the ID cards. Emily Sanderson. The third bin was full of photographs. Printed photos, not digital. Hundreds of them. Shots taken from a distance. Students walking across campus. Students entering dormitories. Students sitting in library windows. All women. All unaware they were being photographed. I found Hannah Vargas in that stack. Dozens of photos. Outside her dorm. At the campus coffee shop. Walking to class. Sitting on a bench. The fourth bin contained notebooks. Handwritten logs. Dates, times, locations. Patterns of movement. Room 314 returns from library 11,030 to 1200 p.m. most nights. Allergy medication kept in desk drawer, takes 1 tablet before bed. Roommate stays at boyfriend's apartment Thursday nights. This was not just evidence of stalking. This was evidence of surveillance, planning, and collection of trophies. I took photos of everything with my phone. I did not touch the items. I did not want to contaminate potential evidence more than I already had by breaking in. Then I heard something. A vehicle engine. Distant but getting closer. Someone was coming up the service road. I closed the bins. I shut the shed door. The lock was broken, but I positioned it to look closed from a distance. I moved into the woods and crouched behind a fallen log about 30 yards away. I had a clear view of the clearing and the shed. A dark pickup truck came into view. Older model. Black. It parked near the shed. The driver's door opened. A man got out. Average height. Wearing a baseball cap. He walked to the shed with a duffel bag. He reached for the lock and immediately saw it was broken. He dropped the duffel bag and looked around. I pressed myself flat against the ground. He scanned the woods slowly. Then he pulled something from his jacket. A phone. He made a call. I could not hear what he said, but I could see his body language. Tense. Angry. He ended the call and walked back to his truck. He grabbed something from the cab. Binoculars. He started scanning the woods with them. I stayed completely still. If he looked in my direction with those binoculars, he would see me. I was maybe 80 feet away. Not enough distance. The afternoon sun was behind him, which meant I was in shadow, but movement would give me away. He scanned for 5 minutes. Then he lowered the binoculars and walked back to the shed. He opened the door fully. He checked the bins. He knew someone had been inside. He pulled out his phone again and took photos of the interior, documenting that it had been disturbed. Then he did something I did not expect. He started packing the bins into his truck. He was moving everything. He worked quickly, methodically. Within 15 minutes, all 4 bins were loaded. He went back into the shed and checked the corners, making sure nothing was left behind. He found something on the floor. A piece of paper, the hardware receipt I had dropped. He picked it up and stared at it. He knows I was here. He knows someone found his collection. And now, he is erasing the evidence. I had photos on my phone, but without the physical items, proving chain of custody would be nearly impossible. I needed to stop him from leaving, but I was unarmed, alone, and dealing with someone who had killed before. I made a decision. I called 911. I whispered my location and said there was a theft in progress. I said the suspect was loading stolen property into a truck and was about to flee. I gave the license plate number. The dispatcher said units were at least 20 minutes away. 20 minutes was too long. He would be gone by then. I needed to delay him. I had one option. I stood up and stepped into view. He saw me immediately. We made eye contact across the clearing. I raised my phone and said loudly that I had already called police and they were on the way. I said I had photos of everything in the shed. I said there was no point in running. He did not run. He walked toward me, slowly, not aggressive, but not friendly. He stopped about 20 feet away, close enough to talk, too far for me to escape if he rushed me. He said, "You should not have come here." His voice was calm, almost polite. I said I was investigating Hannah Vargas's death. I said I knew what he did. He tilted his head slightly. "Hannah who?" I said, "Hannah Vargas, room 314, September 16th. You killed her." He smiled. The same smile Emily Sanderson had described. "I did not kill anyone. She had a heart condition. The medical examiner said so." I said, "You caused it. You planned it. You accessed her room 17 times. You studied her routine. You tampered with her medication. And when she was unconscious, you did something that stopped her heart." He shook his head. "You have a creative imagination, but you do not have proof. You broke into my property. You are trespassing, and you have no idea what you are talking about." I said, "The bins, the photos, the logs, that is proof." He laughed. It was not a normal laugh. It was the sound of someone who knows they are in control. "Those belong to me, private collection. Not illegal to take pictures in public spaces. Not illegal to keep notebooks. You, on the other hand, committed breaking and entering." I realized he was right. Without the physical bins, without forensic evidence tying him to Hannah's room on the night she died, I had circumstantial evidence of stalking, but not murder. And I had just committed a crime by breaking into his shed. He said, "Police are not coming. You are bluffing." But then we both heard it. Sirens, distant but approaching. His expression changed. He looked at his truck, then back at me. He was calculating. He could leave now and disappear, or he could deal with me. He chose option 3. He walked back to his truck, got in, and drove away. Not speeding, not panicking, just driving calmly down the service road like he had every right to be there. I ran to the clearing. The shed was empty. The bins were gone. The only evidence left was the broken lock and my photos on my phone. Sheriff's deputies arrived 12 minutes later. I showed them the shed. I showed them my photos. I explained everything. They took a report. They said they would try to locate the truck, but the license plate I gave them came back to a vehicle reported stolen 3 months ago in another county. Aaron Trent, or whoever he really is gone. The bins are gone. The physical evidence is gone. All I have left are digital photos that a defense attorney would argue could have been staged or manipulated. Detective Voss called me the next day. She said the sheriff's department shared their report. She said my photos showed disturbing behavior, but not definitive proof of homicide. She said, without the actual items, without forensic analysis, without a confession, the district attorney would not file charges. She said I was lucky Aaron did not press charges against me for breaking into his property. I asked if she believed me. There was a long pause. Then she said yes. She believed something terrible happened to Hannah Vargas. But belief is not evidence. She said she would keep the case open, but without new leads there was nothing more she could do. I went back to Hannah's parents and told them everything. I showed them the photos. I explained what I found and what I lost. Her mother cried. Her father asked if Aaron Trent would ever face justice. I said I did not know. I said I was sorry I could not give them the closure they deserved. But I did not stop. I started monitoring online forums for missing persons cases in neighboring states. I started looking for patterns. Young women. College towns. Unexplained deaths ruled natural causes or accidents. Maintenance workers who quit suddenly. Buildings with crawl space access. And I found 3 more cases that fit the pattern. Different universities. Different cities. Same MO. Maintenance access. Falsified work orders. Sudden deaths with ambiguous causes. In 2 of the cases, a maintenance worker quit within weeks of the death. In the 3rd case, the worker transferred to a different campus and quit 6 months later. I contacted the families in all 3 cases. I shared my research. 2 of them had never questioned the official ruling. One of them, a father in Oregon, said he always felt something was wrong but could not prove it. He said his daughter had mentioned feeling watched in the weeks before she died. She said she kept finding her belongings moved slightly, like someone had been in her room. She blamed her roommate. The roommate denied it. We are building a network now. Families, investigators, journalists. We are compiling data. We are looking for the pattern across state lines. We are trying to identify if Aaron Trent is one person using multiple identities, or if there are multiple offenders using the same playbook. Because that is the thing I have come to understand. This is not about one case. This is about a predatory system that exploits institutional access, bureaucratic indifference, and the vulnerability of young people living away from home for the first time. Maintenance workers are invisible. They have keys. They have justification for being in private spaces. And when something goes wrong, everyone assumes it was an accident or a tragedy. No one looks for a pattern until someone forces them to. I am forcing them to look now. I have contacted the Department of Education. I have contacted the FBI. I have written to every state attorney general in regions where these cases occurred. Most of them have not responded. Some have sent form letters thanking me for my concern. One, in Colorado, assigned an investigator to review the case I flagged in Denver. That investigator called me last week. She said she found irregularities in the maintenance records at that campus too. She said she was opening a formal inquiry. It is not justice yet. But it is momentum. Hannah Vargas died on September 16th. The official record says natural causes. But I know she was murdered. I know someone planned it, executed it, and walked away. I know there are others. And I know the person responsible is still out there, possibly working at another campus, possibly building another collection, possibly choosing another target. I think about Hannah's last night often. She came back from the library. She took off her shoes. She sat on her bed. Maybe she felt tired from the medication that was not just allergy relief. Maybe she lay down, thinking she would rest for a few minutes before getting ready for bed. Maybe she heard a sound from the closet, a scrape of the access panel moving, and thought it was just the building settling. Or maybe she heard nothing at all. Maybe she slipped into unconsciousness without realizing what was happening. Maybe Aaron Trent dropped down from the crawl space into her closet, walked across her room, and stood over her while she lay there defenseless. Maybe he checked her pulse. Maybe he used a technique he had practiced. Maybe he waited to make sure. And then maybe he climbed back into the crawl space, replaced the panel, and left through the utility corridors he knew so well. By the time Carrie returned the next morning, Hannah was cold. The door was still locked. The window was still latched. Everything looked normal except for the fact that a 19-year-old with no history of heart problems had died in her sleep. I carry the weight of that night now. I carry the knowledge that I was close. I saw the evidence. I confronted the person responsible. And I let him drive away because I did not have the authority or means to stop him. Detective Voss told me not to blame myself. She said even if I had somehow detained him without physical evidence connecting him to Hannah's death, he would have walked. She said the system failed Hannah long before I got involved. She said the failure was institutional. A university that did not take Emily Sanderson's complaint seriously. A medical examiner who did not question the convenient diagnosis. A contracting company that did not vet or monitor its employees. A police department that did not have resources to investigate ever a death that seemed accidental. She is right. But it does not make the weight easier to carry. I still go back to that clearing sometimes. The shed is gone. The campsite is gone. The service road gate is locked with a new chain. But I walk the area looking for anything I might have missed. I have found nothing. Aaron Trent cleaned up thoroughly. He is a professional. He has done this before. He will likely do it again. Unless I can stop him. That is why I am telling this story now. Because somewhere, a maintenance worker is filling out a falsified work order. Somewhere, a college student is noticing her belongings moved slightly. Somewhere, someone is being watched, studied, and selected. And unless we recognize the pattern, unless we take these invisible predators seriously, it will keep happening. Hannah Vargas was not the first. She will not be the last. But maybe if enough people hear her story, if enough families demand answers, if enough investigators refuse to accept convenient explanations, we can make it harder for people like Aaron Trent to operate. I have not stopped looking for him. I check stolen vehicle reports. I monitor campground registries. I follow up on tips from people who think they saw someone matching his description. Most of them lead nowhere. But I only need one to lead somewhere. In the meantime, I am working with the families of the other victims. We are pushing for a multi-state task force. We are pushing for mandatory background checks and monitoring for maintenance workers with building access. We are pushing for better training for campus security to recognize predatory patterns. We are pushing for medical examiners to take a second look at deaths in dormitories when there are irregularities in maintenance records prior to the death. It is slow work. It is frustrating work. But it is necessary work. Because Hannah's parents deserve to know that their daughter's death meant something. That it changed how universities protect students. That it exposed a danger no one wanted to acknowledge. I think about the last time I spoke to Hannah's mother. She asked me if I thought Hannah was afraid at the end. I did not know what to say. The truth was, I hoped she was not. I hoped she slipped away without awareness. But her mother said she hoped Hannah fought. She hoped Hannah realized what was happening and tried to resist. Because then at least she would have known. She would have had a moment to understand that her life was being taken. That it was not just random medical failure. I told her I did not think Hannah had time to understand. I think it happened too fast. I think Aaron Trent made sure of that. He did not want a struggle. He did not want noise. He wanted it to look peaceful, natural, inevitable. That is what makes him dangerous. He is not impulsive. He is not sloppy. He is patient and methodical. He plans for weeks. He studies his targets. He creates paper trails that justify his presence. And when he acts, he leaves almost nothing behind. Almost nothing. But not quite nothing. Because he made one mistake. He kept trophies. He documented his surveillance. He created a collection that proved pattern and intent. And even though that collection is gone now, I have proof it existed. I have photos. I have witness testimony. I have Emily Sanderson, who is willing to testify about what happened to her. The district attorney in Oregon is considering bringing charges for stalking and burglary related to Emily's case. The statute of limitations has not expired. If Emily can identify Aaron Trent in a photo lineup, if we can connect him to the falsified work orders from 3 years ago, we might be able to get him on something. It would not be justice for Hannah, but it would get him off the street. It would put his name in the system, it would make it harder for him to work in campus environments again. That is the goal now. Not perfect justice, but incremental accountability. Get him on anything we can prove. Build the case piece by piece. Show the pattern even if we cannot prove every individual act. Detective Voss is coordinating with law enforcement in 3 states now. The FBI is reviewing the cases under a federal stalking statute that covers crossing state lines with intent to harm. It is a long shot, but it is something. In the meantime, I am still here, still investigating, still documenting, still trying to make sure that when Aaron Trent surfaces again, someone will recognize him, because he will surface. People like him do not stop. They move. They adapt. They find new hunting grounds, but they do not stop. And when he surfaces, I will be ready. Not with a gun. Not with vigilante justice, but with evidence, connections, and a network of people who refuse to let these deaths be forgotten. Hannah Vargas was 19 years old. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She called her parents every Sunday. She bruised easily. She took allergy medication before bed. She was careful and kind. And she died alone in a locked room because someone with a key decided she was his next target. Her story does not end with her death. It ends when we make sure it cannot happen again, when we change the systems that allowed it, when we hold institutions accountable for the people they give access to, when we teach young people to trust their instincts when something feels wrong. Emily Sanderson trusted her instincts. She reported what happened. She kept pushing even when no one believed her. And because she did, she survived. Hannah did not get that chance. But maybe because of Hannah, the next person will. That is what I hold on to. That is what keeps me going back to that forest, back to those records, back to the families who lost someone and do not know why. I do not have all the answers yet, but I have enough pieces to see the shape of the truth. And I will not stop until the rest of the world sees it too. The maintenance logs still exist. The crawl space still has those knee prints in the dust. The hardware store still has security footage. Emily Sanderson still remembers the face of the man who smiled at her. And Hannah's parents still have a daughter who deserves justice. It is just a matter of time now. And time is something I have. Aaron Trent made a mistake when he kept those bins. He made a mistake when he smiled at Emily. He made a mistake when he drove away instead of destroying his truck. And he will make another mistake. They always do. When he does, I will be there, with evidence, with witnesses, with a case that cannot be dismissed. Until then, I keep working. I keep searching. I keep telling Hannah's story to anyone who will listen. Because she cannot tell it herself. And someone needs to make sure her death was not for nothing. The breakthrough came 4 months after I lost the truck in the forest. Not from law enforcement. Not from the FBI. From a Reddit post. Someone using the handle Dormwatcher89 posted in a true crime subreddit about a maintenance worker at their university who gave them weird vibes. The post described a man in his late 30s who would linger too long during routine repairs, who asked personal questions about schedules and routines, who seemed to show up for work orders that other maintenance staff said were not legitimate. The poster said they had reported him to campus security. Security said they would look into it. Nothing happened. 2 weeks later, the poster checked the maintenance staff directory. The man was gone. Just gone. No notice. No explanation. The university would not confirm or deny whether he had been fired or quit. I messaged Dorm Watcher 89 immediately, asked for details, asked for a physical description, asked which university. They were hesitant at first, worried about doxing themselves, but I explained what I was investigating. I sent them links to my published articles about Hannah's case. I told them I believed their instincts were correct, and that this might be part of a larger pattern. They agreed to talk on a burner email account. No names, no personal details, just facts. The university was in Washington State. Small liberal arts college. Residential campus. The maintenance worker started in January, lasted 3 months. Quit in late March with no notice. The poster, who lived in one of the older dormitories, said the man had come to their room twice for routine inspections that were not on any official schedule. Both times, the poster was alone. Both times, the man lingered. Asked about their major. Asked if they lived alone or had a roommate. Asked what their typical schedule was like. The second time, the poster noticed the man looking at a photograph on their desk. It was a family photo. The man asked who was in the photo. Asked where it was taken. The poster felt uncomfortable and asked the man to leave. He smiled and left without argument, but the next day, the poster found their door slightly ajar when they returned from class. They were certain they had locked it. Nothing was missing. But things felt wrong. A drawer was open that they were sure had been closed. Their laptop was angled differently on their desk. They reported it to campus security. Security said they would review keycard logs. They said maintenance had accessed the room that morning for a scheduled air filter change. The poster said they had received no notice of any air filter change. Security said notices were sometimes missed. They said if nothing was stolen, there was probably nothing to worry about. 2 weeks later, the maintenance worker was gone. The poster asked campus security what happened. Security would not comment on personnel matters. The poster checked the staff directory every few days. The man's name disappeared. They tried to find him online. No social media. No professional profiles. Nothing. I asked for the name. Dorm Watcher 89 hesitated, said they were not sure they should share it. I explained that without a name, I could not verify if this was the same person. I promised I would not publish it without permission. I said I was trying to prevent what happened to Hannah from happening to someone else. They sent me the name, Marcus Holt. I ran the name through every database I could access. Found nothing. No criminal record. No traffic violations. No property ownership. No voter registration. It was like the name did not exist outside of that 3-month employment period. I contacted the university directly. Asked to speak to someone in human resources. got transferred 4 times. Finally reached someone who said they could not discuss former employees. I explained I was investigating a potential pattern of predatory behavior. They said they would pass my information to their legal department. No one called me back. I tried campus security. Same response. Privacy policies. Liability concerns. No comment. So I went there in person. Drove 8 hours to Washington. Booked a cheap motel near campus. Spent 3 days walking the grounds, talking to students, asking if anyone remembered a maintenance worker named Marcus Holt who worked there in the spring. Most students did not pay attention to maintenance staff. A few remembered seeing someone who matched the description Dorm Watcher 89 provided. Tall. Thin. Dark hair. Quiet. One student, a junior majoring in biology, said she remembered him because he had come to her room to fix a heating vent that was not broken. She thought it was strange but assumed maintenance had mixed up room numbers. He stayed less than 5 minutes. Did not ask her any questions. Just checked the vent, said it seemed fine, and left. I asked if anything unusual happened after that visit. She thought for a moment, then said yes, actually. Her roommate mentioned a few days later that she thought someone had been in their room. She could not prove it. Just a feeling. Things felt slightly off. They checked with their RA. The RA said maintenance had been doing routine inspections that week. If they did not receive notice, it was probably an administrative error. I asked if her roommate was still on campus. She said no. Her roommate had transferred after that semester. Said she never felt safe in the dorms after that. Felt watched. Could not shake the feeling that someone had access to her space whenever they wanted. I got the roommate's name. Tracked her down through social media. Sent a careful message explaining I was investigating maintenance staff misconduct at universities, and that her name had come up as someone who might have experienced something concerning. Asked if she would be willing to talk. She responded within an hour. Said yes. Said she had been waiting for someone to take this seriously. We talked on the phone for 90 minutes. She told me everything. The feeling of being watched. The small signs that someone had been in the room when she was not there. A drawer left open. A closet door not fully closed. Her laptop moved slightly. She had reported it to the RA 3 times. The RA said she was probably imagining it. Stress. Adjustment issues. Maybe she was forgetting whether she had closed things. But she was not imagining it. She knew. She could feel it. And the feeling got worse after the maintenance worker came to fix the heating vent that was not broken. She started finding excuses to not be in her room. Studied in the library until it closed. Stayed at friends' rooms. Slept poorly when she did stay in her own bed. She felt like she was losing her mind. Then one night, she woke up at 3 a.m. She heard a sound. A scraping sound, like something moving behind the wall. She lay there frozen, listening. The sound stopped. She convinced herself it was pipes. Old building. Normal sounds. But the next morning, she checked her closet. There was an access panel in the back wall, behind her hanging clothes. She had never noticed it before. She pulled the clothes aside. The panel was slightly loose, like it had been removed and replaced recently. She tried to open it. It was stiff, but it moved. Behind it was a crawl space. Dark. Dusty. She could not see far into it, but she could see footprints in the dust. Recent footprints. Leading to and from the access panel. She took photos, showed them to the RA. The RA said maintenance used those crawl spaces for repairs. Probably someone had been fixing wiring or plumbing. She said, that did not explain why no one told her. That did not explain why the panel was not secured properly. That did not explain the feeling of being watched. The RA said she would report it to campus security. Campus security said they would look into it. Nothing happened. A week later, the roommate transferred. She said she could not stay in that building, could not sleep knowing someone might be able to access her room through the walls. Her parents supported the transfer. They thought she was overreacting, but they did not want her to be unhappy. Now, talking to me, she said she was not overreacting. She said she knew someone had been using that crawl space to access her room. She said she believed it was the maintenance worker who came to fix the vent that was not broken, and she said she believed if she had stayed, something worse would have happened. I asked if she ever saw Marcus Holt again after that visit. She said no. She asked around about him a few weeks later, after she found the footprints. Students said he had quit, just stopped showing up. No one knew why. I told her about Hannah, told her about the bins, told her about the pattern. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said she was lucky. She said if she had not woken up that night, if she had not found the access panel, she might have ended up like Hannah. She said she was lucky she trusted her instincts. I told her she was brave. I told her she might have saved her own life. And I told her I needed her to be willing to go on record if this ever became a legal case. She said yes. Absolutely yes. She said she would testify. She said she wanted other people to know they were not imagining things, that their instincts were right. I now had 3 cases, 3 universities, 3 maintenance workers who quit suddenly. Emily Sanderson in Oregon, Hannah Vargas in Colorado, and now this roommate in Washington. 3 different names, 3 different faces, but the same MO, the same predatory pattern, the same use of crawl spaces and falsified work orders. I started looking at driver's license photos. Oregon DMV, Colorado DMV, Washington DMV, searching for Aaron Trent, searching for Marcus Holt. Found nothing. Either the names were fake, or the licenses were issued in other states, or they were using stolen identities. I contacted a private investigator who specializes in identity fraud, sent her everything I had. She said it sounded like someone using a rotation of stolen or fabricated identities. She said it was not difficult if you knew what you were doing. Social security numbers from deceased individuals, birth certificates from people who died young, driver's licenses issued in states with lax verification, She said if someone was committed and careful, they could maintain multiple clean identities for years. She said the best way to catch someone like that was through biometric identification, facial recognition, fingerprints, DNA. But that required law enforcement involvement. And law enforcement would not get involved without probable cause. And I did not have probable cause. I had circumstantial evidence. I had witness testimony. I had a pattern. But I did not have proof that Aaron Trent and Marcus Holt were the same person, unless I could find a photograph. I went back to the university in Washington, asked Human Resources if they kept employee ID photos on file. They said they did, but they would not release them without a subpoena. I asked campus security if they had surveillance footage from the time Marcus Holt worked there. They said footage was only retained for 90 days. It had been 7 months. The footage was gone. I tried a different approach. I went to the maintenance department directly, asked to speak to whoever supervised Marcus Holt, got directed to a facilities manager named Dale Pruitt. Older man. Gruff. Not interested in talking. I explained I was investigating complaints about a former employee. He said Marcus Holt was not employed there anymore, and that was all he could say. I asked why Holt quit. Pruitt said he did not quit. He was fired. I asked why. Pruitt said personnel matters were confidential. I said I was investigating a potential pattern of predatory behavior at multiple universities, and that if Holt was fired for cause, it was in the public interest to know why. Pruitt studied me for a long moment. Then, he said off the record, Marcus Holt was fired because another employee reported that Holt was accessing rooms without work orders. The employee, a long-time maintenance tech, said he saw Holt coming out of a dorm room on a weekend when no work orders were scheduled for that building. The employee asked Holt what he was doing there. Holt said he was checking a reported leak. The employee checked the work order system. No leak reported. No work order filed. The employee reported it to Pruitt. Pruitt confronted Holt. Holt said there must have been a clerical error. He said a student had mentioned a leak in passing and he was just being proactive. Pruitt checked with the student. The student said she never mentioned a leak. She said she had never spoken to Marcus Holt. Pruitt fired him on the spot. Holt did not argue, did not ask for a second chance, just turned in his keys and left. Pruitt said he should have reported it to campus security, but he did not want to create a situation without proof. He said maybe that was a mistake. He said he thought about it sometimes. I asked if he had a photo of Holt. He said no. Employee badges were issued by Human Resources. Maintenance did not keep copies. I asked if he remembered what Holt looked like. He described him. Tall, thin, dark hair, quiet, kept to himself, did not socialize with other staff, always seemed to be watching people. I asked if Pruitt would be willing to identify Holt from a photo if I found one. He said maybe. Depended on the photo. He said he was not great with faces, but he would try. I thanked him. He said I should talk to the employee who reported Holt. Said his name was Gene Wallace. Said Gene might remember more. gave me Jean's contact information. I called Gene Wallace that night. He remembered Marcus Holt clearly. Said Holt creeped him out from day one. Said Holt had a way of watching people without seeming to watch them. Said Holt asked too many questions about building layouts, access points, keycard systems. Said he seemed more interested in the security infrastructure than the actual maintenance work. Gene said the day he saw Holt coming out of that dorm room, Holt looked startled, like he had been caught doing something he should not be doing. Gene said Holt recovered quickly, smiled, gave that story about the leak. But Gene did not believe it. Gene had been doing maintenance work for 20 years. He knew when someone was lying. I asked Gene if he would recognize Holt from a photo. He said absolutely. Said he would never forget that face. Said it still bothered him that he did not push harder to get Holt reported to police. He said he told Pruitt to call campus security. Pruitt said he would handle it internally. Gene said he should have gone over Pruitt's head, should have reported it himself. But he did not, and he regretted it. I told Gene about Hannah, told him about Emily, told him I believed Marcus Holt was using multiple identities to target students at different universities. Gene was quiet for a long time. Then he said if I found a photo, if I needed him to testify, he would. He said he did not want what happened to Hannah to happen to anyone else. I now had witnesses in 3 states. I had a pattern. I had testimony. What I needed was a photograph. One clear image that could be shown to Emily Sanderson, to Gene Wallace, to Dale Pruitt. One image that could confirm Aaron Trent and Marcus Holt were the same person. I went back through Hannah's case file, looked at every piece of evidence. Campus security had interviewed maintenance staff after Hannah's death. Aaron Trent was on that list. The interview notes were minimal. Trent said he had never entered Hannah's room, said he had no reason to, said he worked mostly on exterior repairs and mechanical systems. The security officer noted that Trent seemed cooperative and calm. No red flags. But there was no photo attached to the interview report. No employee ID. No driver's license copy. Nothing. I contacted the contracting company that employed Aaron Trent. Got a runaround. They said employee records were confidential. I said Trent was connected to an active investigation. They said they would need a subpoena. I did not have a subpoena. I was not law enforcement. I was just a journalist with a theory and no legal authority. I tried a different approach. I searched for Aaron Trent on social media. Found dozens of accounts. None matched the description. I searched for Marcus Holt. Same result. Too many matches. No clear leads. I went back to the hardware store where Aaron Trent bought the bins. Showed the manager a description. Asked if he remembered the man. He said maybe. He said a lot of people came through. I asked if he still had the security footage from that day. He said footage was stored for a year. It had been 8 months. It might still exist. He checked. Found it. Pulled up the date and approximate time based on the receipt timestamp. Showed me the footage. Grainy. Low resolution. But visible. A man in a baseball cap and jacket approaching the counter, buying the bins, paying cash, turning to leave, pausing at the door to pull his phone from his pocket. And in that pause, for just a moment, he turned his face toward the camera. Not a perfect angle, not a close-up, but enough to see his features, enough to capture his face. I asked the manager if I could have a copy of the footage. He said he would need to check with corporate. I said this was connected to a homicide investigation. He said he would definitely need to check with corporate. I gave him my contact information, told him to call me as soon as he heard back. He called me 2 days later, said corporate approved release of the footage to law enforcement only, not to journalists, not to private citizens, only to law enforcement with a case number and official request. I called Detective Voss, explained what I found, explained the hardware store had footage of Aaron Trent. She said she would request it, said it might take time, said she would have to justify the request to her supervisor, said she would do her best. 3 weeks later, she called me back, said she had the footage, said she ran a still image through facial recognition. No matches. Said either Trent had no prior criminal record, or he was using a fake identity, or the resolution was too poor for a match. She said she would send the still image to campus security in Washington, see if anyone recognized him as Marcus Holt. Campus security in Washington showed the image to Gene Wallace. Gene said he could not be 100% certain, but the facial structure looked right. The build looked right. He said if he saw the person in motion, if he saw the way they moved, he could be more certain. But from a still image, he was maybe 70% sure. 70% was not enough for an arrest warrant. But it was enough for me. I sent the still image to Dorm Watcher 89, asked if it looked like Marcus Holt. They said yes, definitely yes. They said that was the man who came to their room. They were sure. I sent the image to the roommate in Washington who transferred after finding the footprints. She said yes, that was him. She would never forget that face. I sent the image to Emily Sanderson. She stared at it for a long time. Then she said yes. That was the man who stood outside her window. That was the man who smiled at her. 3 positive identifications. 4 witnesses. Multiple states. Same MO. Same predatory behavior. Same use of crawl spaces and falsified access. I compiled everything into a report. Sent it to the FBI. Sent it to state attorneys general in Oregon, Colorado, and Washington. Sent it to every law enforcement agency connected to these cases. Most of them did not respond. The FBI sent a form letter thanking me for the information. One assistant attorney general in Washington said they would review it. Detective Voss said she would push her supervisor to request a multi-state task force. She said it was a long shot. She said budgets were tight. Resources were limited. Unless there was a smoking gun, it was hard to get multiple agencies to coordinate. I did not have a smoking gun. I had a pattern. I had witnesses. I had circumstantial evidence. But I did not have physical proof that Aaron Trent or Marcus Holt murdered Hannah Vargas. I did not have DNA. I did not have fingerprints. I did not have the bins. I did not have anything that would hold up in court. What I had was the truth, and the knowledge that somewhere, under a new name, Aaron Trent was working at another university, watching another student, planning another crime. I spent the next 2 months trying to find him, checked maintenance staff listings at universities across the country, looked for recent hires, looked for sudden resignations, looked for any pattern that matched what I had seen before. Found nothing concrete. Either he had moved to a different line of work, or he was being more careful now, or I was looking in the wrong places. Then I got a message from Dorm Watcher 89. They said they had been following the case online. They said they wanted to help. They said they had created a network with other students who experienced similar situations. Students who reported maintenance workers entering rooms without cause. Students who found evidence of surveillance. Students who felt watched. They sent me a spreadsheet, dozens of reports, different universities, different states. Most of them dismissed by campus security as misunderstandings or policy violations. None of them investigated as potential crimes. But when you looked at them together, a pattern emerged. I cross-referenced the reports with maintenance staff employment records. Found 3 universities where a maintenance worker quit or was fired shortly after a complaint was filed. University in Texas. University in Michigan. University in Arizona. All within the last 18 months. All involving complaints about unauthorized room access. I contacted students at those universities. Asked if they remembered the maintenance worker who was involved. 2 of them remembered. Described him the same way. Tall, thin, dark hair, quiet, polite, always seemed to be around. One of them, a student in Arizona, said she took a photo of him. She said he was standing outside her building one night, just watching the windows. She felt uneasy. Took a photo through her window. Blurry, but visible. She sent it to me. I compared it to the hardware store still image. Same facial structure, same build, same posture. Not identical angles, but close enough. I sent both images to a forensic imaging analyst. Asked for a comparison. She said the resolution was poor, but the biometric markers were consistent. Cheekbone structure, eye spacing, jawline. She said it was likely the same person. She said she would estimate 85% probability. 85% was not proof, but it was enough to keep going. I found out the maintenance worker in Arizona used the name David Cole. He worked at the university for 4 months. Quit without notice in late September. No forwarding address. No explanation. Human Resources said he collected his final paycheck and never came back. I contacted the student who filed the complaint. She said David Cole came to her room 3 times in 1 week. each time with a different excuse. Faulty wiring, water pressure issue, ventilation check. She said nothing was ever actually wrong. She said he would walk around the room slowly, looking at everything, asking questions about her schedule, her habits, her routines. The third time he came, she told him she was going to report him if he came back. He smiled, said he understood, said he was just trying to be thorough, said he would not bother her again. He did not. But she said she saw him outside her building twice after that, just standing there, watching. She reported it to campus security. They said they would look into it. 2 days later, David Cole quit. Campus security closed the case, said the issue was resolved. I asked her if she would recognize him from a photo. She said yes, absolutely. I sent her the hardware store still image. She said that was him. 100%. She said she would never forget that face. I now had 5 witnesses across 5 states. 5 different names. Aaron Trent, Marcus Holt, David Cole, and 2 others I had not yet confirmed. All matching the same description. All using the same methods. All targeting female students living alone in ground floor or basement level rooms. I compiled the new information, sent it to the FBI again. This time I included the forensic imaging analysis. This time I included witness statements from 5 states. This time I included a timeline showing the pattern of employment, complaints, and sudden resignations. 2 weeks later, I got a call from an FBI special agent named Karen Delgado. She said she reviewed my report. She said it was compelling. She said the Bureau was opening a preliminary investigation into potential interstate stalking and identity fraud. She said they would be contacting campus security officers and local law enforcement in the relevant jurisdictions. She said it would take time. She said I should not expect quick results. I asked if they would issue a public alert, warn universities to screen maintenance hires more carefully. She said they could not do that without more concrete evidence. She said issuing an alert based on circumstantial evidence could create panic and expose the Bureau to liability if the suspect was never apprehended, or if the theory turned out to be wrong. I understood her position. But I also knew that while the Bureau conducted its preliminary investigation, Aaron Trent, or Marcus Holt, or David Cole, or whatever name he was using now, was still out there, still working, still watching, still planning. I decided to go public. Wrote an article outlining everything I had found. Did not use real names. Did not identify specific universities without permission. But I laid out the pattern. The MO. The multiple identities. The targeting of vulnerable students. The use of access privileges to surveil and victimize. The article went viral. Universities across the country started reviewing their hiring practices. Some implemented stricter background checks. Some installed additional security measures in dormitories. Some created protocols for students to report suspicious behavior without fear of dismissal. I also started getting messages, dozens of them, from students who said they experienced similar situations. Maintenance workers who entered their rooms without explanation. Workers who asked invasive questions. Workers who seemed to know too much about their schedules. Most of these reports did not match the MO exactly, but some of them did. One message stood out. A student in North Carolina. She said a maintenance worker named Eric Lindsay came to her dorm room 2 weeks earlier. Said there was a gas leak in the building. Said he needed to check all the rooms. She let him in. He walked around slowly, checked the vents, checked the windows, asked her if she lived alone, asked her what her class schedule was. She said she felt uncomfortable but did not think much of it at the time. Then she read my article. She said everything matched. The questions. The slow, deliberate way he moved through the room. The way he looked at her. She said she reported it to campus security. They said they would check if there was a work order. There was not. They said they would speak to Eric Lindsay. He did not show up for his next shift. Or the shift after that. He quit without notice. Campus security said they would follow up. That was a week ago. She had not heard anything since. I called campus security at the university in North Carolina. Identified myself as a journalist. Said I was investigating a possible pattern of predatory behavior by a maintenance worker using multiple identities. Asked if Eric Lindsay was still employed there. They said no. He quit. I asked if they had contact information for him. They said they could not release that information. I asked if they had a photo of him. They said employee photos were confidential. I said this could be connected to an active FBI investigation. They said I would need to have the FBI contact them directly. I called Agent Delgado. Told her about North Carolina. She said she would add it to the case file. She said the Bureau was coordinating with local agencies, but it was a complex investigation spanning multiple jurisdictions. She said these things take time. Time was the problem. Every day that passed was another day for him to move. Another day for him to find a new target. Another day for him to refine his methods. I flew to North Carolina. Went to the university. Showed the hardware store still image to students in the dormitory where Eric Lindsay worked. Asked if anyone recognized him. 3 students said yes. That was Eric. They remembered him. Quiet guy. Polite. Always seemed to be fixing something. I asked if any of them felt uncomfortable around him. One student, a young woman, said yes. She said he came to her room once. Said he was checking the smoke detectors. She said he spent a long time in there, longer than seemed necessary. She said he asked her if she felt safe in the dorm, asked her if she ever heard strange noises at night. She said it felt like he was fishing for something, like he was trying to figure out if she was nervous or paranoid. She said she lied, said she felt perfectly safe, said she never heard anything unusual. He nodded, smiled, left. She said after he left, she checked the smoke detector. It was working fine. Nothing had been adjusted or replaced. She did not report it because she was not sure if she was overreacting. But after reading my article, she wished she had. I asked her if she would be willing to make a statement to the FBI. She said yes. Absolutely. She gave me her contact information. I passed it to Agent Delgado. Agent Delgado called me 2 days later. She said the Bureau had identified Eric Lindsay as a person of interest. She said they obtained his employment records from the university. She said the name Eric Lindsay matched a social security number belonging to a man who died in 1993 at age 6. The identity was stolen. She said they ran the photo from the university's employee file through facial recognition again. This time they got a partial match. Not enough for a confirmed identification, but enough to suggest the person in the photo had been flagged in another database. Possibly military, possibly law enforcement, possibly corrections. She said they were working on it. She said I should not publish anything about Eric Lindsay yet. She said if the suspect realized he was being actively pursued, he would disappear completely. She said they needed time to build a case. I agreed to hold the story. But I also knew that if the FBI did not move quickly, he would disappear anyway. That was his pattern. Stay in one place for a few months. Get too close. Get reported. Quit before anyone could investigate. Move to a new state. New university. New identity. 3 weeks later, Agent Delgado called me again. She said the facial recognition match came back. The person in Eric Lindsay's employee photo matched a man named Ethan Michael Cross. Ethan Michael Cross was arrested in 2009 in Nevada for breaking and entering. Charges were dropped due to insufficient evidence. He was arrested again in 2012 in California for stalking. Pleaded down to trespassing. Served 9 months. Released in 2013. No known address after that. Agent Delgado said the FBI believed Ethan Michael Cross was the man using the identities Aaron Trent, Marcus Holt, David Cole, and Eric Lindsay. She said they believed he was responsible for Hannah Vargas's death. She said they believed he was actively stalking students at universities across the country. She said they had issued a federal warrant for his arrest on charges of identity fraud, interstate stalking, and suspicion of homicide. She said they were coordinating with campus police and local law enforcement at universities in 12 states. She said they were distributing his photo. She said they were monitoring job applications for maintenance positions at universities nationwide. She said they would find him. I asked if I could publish. She said yes. She said the warrant was public record now. She said the more people who saw his face, the better the chances of someone recognizing him and reporting his location. I published the follow-up article the same day. Included Ethan Michael Cross's photo. Included his known aliases. Included a description of his MO. Included a warning to universities to screen maintenance applicants carefully and to investigate any reports of unauthorized room access immediately. The article was picked up by national news outlets. Ethan Michael Cross's face was shown on television, posted on social media, distributed to university security offices across the country. 3 days later, a tip came in. A student in Pennsylvania said she saw a man matching Cross's description working at her university. He was using the name James Porter. He started 2 weeks earlier. She said she recognized him from the photo. She said she was sure. Campus police detained James Porter for questioning. ran his fingerprints, matched them to Ethan Michael Cross. He was arrested on the spot. Extradited to Colorado to face charges in Hannah Vargas's death. The evidence against him was circumstantial. The bins, the hardware store footage, the pattern of behavior, the stolen identities, the witness testimony from multiple states. But it was enough. The district attorney in Colorado charged him with second-degree murder, stalking, burglary, and identity fraud. Cross pleaded not guilty. His attorney argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that the bins could have been purchased by anyone, that the surveillance allegations were unproven, that the witness testimony was unreliable, that there was no physical evidence linking Cross to Hannah Vargas's death. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented the timeline, the hardware store footage, the forensic analysis of the photo comparisons, the testimony from Emily Sanderson, dorm watcher 89, the roommate in Washington, the student in Arizona, Jean Wallace, and others. They presented the pattern of stolen identities, the pattern of sudden resignations, the pattern of targeting vulnerable students. The defense argued that patterns were not proof, that Ethan Michael Cross had a troubled past, but that did not make him a murderer, that the circumstantial evidence could be interpreted in multiple ways, that reasonable doubt existed. The jury deliberated for 2 days. They found Ethan Michael Cross guilty of second-degree murder, stalking, and identity fraud. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison without possibility of parole. Hannah Vargas's family attended the sentencing. Her mother read a victim impact statement. She said, Hannah was kind, curious, and full of life. She said Hannah trusted people. She said Hannah believed the world was a good place. She said Ethan Michael Cross took that from her. She said he took everything from her. She said she hoped no other family would ever have to go through what they went through. She thanked the investigators. She thanked the students who came forward. She thanked me for not giving up. After the trial, I spoke with Detective Voss. She said the case haunted her. She said she was glad it was finally over. But she also said she wished they had caught Cross sooner. She said she thought about all the students he watched, all the students he terrorized. She said she wondered how many there were that never came forward. I wondered the same thing. I wondered how many students felt uneasy but dismissed their instincts. How many reported concerns but were told they were overreacting. How many never knew they were being watched until it was too late. I also spoke with dorm watcher 89. They said they were relieved Cross was in prison, but they also said they still checked their locks every night. They said they still felt uneasy in their apartment. They said trauma does not disappear just because the danger is gone. Emily Sanderson said the same thing. She said she was grateful Cross was caught. But she said she still thought about him sometimes, still wondered if he was thinking about her. She said she moved to a different state after graduating. Said she needed a fresh start. Said she needed to feel safe again. The roommate in Washington said she dropped out of college. Said she could not stay in that building. Could not stay in that town. She said she was working now, saving money, planning to go back to school eventually. But not yet. Not until she felt ready. The student in Arizona said she finished her degree, but transferred to a different university for graduate school. Said she did not want to be anywhere near that campus. Said she did not want to walk past that building ever again. These were the survivors. The ones who trusted their instincts. The ones who spoke up. The ones who got away. But Hannah Vargas did not get away. Hannah Vargas trusted the wrong person. Opened the door to the wrong person. And paid for it with her life. The case is closed now. Ethan Michael Cross is in prison. The universities have updated their protocols. Background checks are stricter. Security is tighter. Students are more aware. But I still think about the access panel in Hannah's room. The one that led to the crawl space. The one that was never locked. I think about how many other access panels exist in dormitories across the country. How many crawl spaces. How many ventilation shafts. How many ways for someone with keys and access to move through a building unseen. I think about the students living in those rooms right now. The ones who feel safe because they lock their doors. The ones who do not know that locks are not enough. That access can be granted with a master key. That danger can come from the person you are supposed to trust. I think about the maintenance workers who do their jobs honestly, who fix leaks and replace light bulbs and never think about exploiting their access. And I think about the ones who do. The ones who watch. The ones who wait. The ones who hide behind stolen identities and falsified work orders. I think about the bins. The plastic storage bins that Aaron Trent bought at a hardware store in Colorado. The bins that were never found. The bins that Ethan Michael Cross used to move through a building without attracting attention. The bins that looked so ordinary, so innocent, so harmless, until you understood what they were really for. And I think about trust. How fragile it is. How necessary it is. How easily it can be weaponized by someone who knows how to exploit it. Hannah Vargas trusted the system. Trusted that her dorm was safe. Trusted that the maintenance worker who knocked on her door was there to help. Trusted that if something was wrong, someone would notice. Someone would intervene. Someone would protect her. But no one did. Not in time. Not when it mattered. The case is closed. Justice was served. Ethan Michael Cross will spend the rest of his life in prison. But Hannah Vargas is still gone. And no verdict will ever bring her back.